Hello everyone, it's Adrian here, and I think the title of this video is going to be Mental Illness in Men, as how it's treated in men as opposed to women, kind of like differences that I've noticed. And let's be clear, I'm not trying to minimize how people experience mental illness. I'm not trying to avoid that at all. I'm not trying to minimize it at all. Mental illness sucks no matter what gender you are. It just sucks. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? If you're a guy, a woman, it really sucks. So I'm not trying to minimize that. But there are differences the way it's treated between males and females and how it's viewed in society. It's a thing. It really is. And just here are some differences that I've noticed. Like one thing that I've noticed is, from a younger age, guys are supposed to be fierce and protective and strong. They're not supposed to have feelings. Whereas women, that's kind of allowed. It's more acceptable. And it's more like, it's just, when a guy has a mental illness, it's seen as weakness, essentially. Like if a guy's crying or guy's having a hard time, he's depressed, it's seen as a weakness. With women, it's not really seen as weakness. It's more of a, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? With a guy, it's just seen as a lot more unacceptable than it is for a woman who has like mental illness. Is maybe the performance depressed. It's seen as more acceptable than a guy is. Than when a guy is. It really is. It's seen as weakness from other males, and it's actually seen as weakness from other women as well. Like, it's I don't know in this day and age why that is, but it still is. It's probably some biological, imprints and society in general that just continues that way of thinking. So it's like one of the biggest things, and there's like more stigma there in terms with males than there are with females with mental illness. There's more stigma on males, unfortunately, and it's like, uh, it's just sad. Another thing I find is that the level of help, and when I say this, I mean more people are more willing to help a woman who's maybe suffering from a mental illness than they are to help a male, and that's just a fact. Like if a guy is struggling with depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, there are going to be less people there that want to help the guy, and you know what I mean. Than there are going to be that want to help the woman. It really is. Like if a guy is in distress, you're going to see significantly less people helping that guy out than a woman who is in distress. You kind of get what I'm saying? It's really weird, and I'm pretty sure they actually think. I'm pretty sure they did like an experiment where, they, kind of like a social experiment. They had like a guy crying or in distress and a woman crying in distress. Like a good chunk of people went to comfort and see what was wrong with the woman, but a lot of people kind of ignored the guy. And then when you throw in race, it was like, man, that would even made me more sad. It was like, oh wow. And that's another thing that I find that's different. It's like, that's one of the biggest difference. More people will be willing to help out a woman who suffers from mental illness than there are a guy. In general, a guy in distress, it's gonna find that less people are willing to help than a woman in distress. So that's another difference I noticed, and that's probably goes back to society, but just to compound on that too, like a lot of outreach programs for like to help people out with mental illness, or you know, a lot of them aren't aimed at men, and when I say that, I mean like demographically, like men that are like say out of college, like in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. There's not a ton of outreach programs available for men suffering from mental illness. I mean, there's a lot of outreach being done for a lot of outreach programs for women, and what I do find is that with men, with men in general, like the outreach programs that are targeted to them are typically targeted at high school males and college student males. People that are like in their teens, that are in college, undergrad, potentially grad school, but the outreach programs are mostly focused on that younger demographic. Like if you're like 30, 40, 50, 60, you know what I mean? You're pretty much slim pickings. There's not a huge amount of outreach programs as there are for a woman of that age, you know, in general. And that's just, like I said, that's another thing that's really, really sad, you know. You know what I mean? It's like there's more outreach for women than there are for males. And in addition to that, because of the stigma placed on males, most males aren't going to go seek that out either. And when they do, they're going to find it very difficult to find that help that they need. It's, you know, it's just one of those where you just shake your head like, man, that sucks. You know what I mean? Excuse me 1 minute, I might have some postnasal drip, which is quite sexy. But that's another thing that I noticed, you know, it's like the outreach just isn't there. And then not just that, but even in terms of like dating, I find that like, don't get me wrong, with both sexes, people kind of more or less will try to avoid someone with a mental illness when they're dating. They'll like try to avoid that. You know what I mean? They'll try to avoid it, but for some weird reason, you know, when a woman has a mental illness, people are a little more willing to date that woman than a guy who has a mental illness. And I don't know, and I think the reason for that is because for some reason, like guys in general, and even women in general, just, you know what I mean, they want, you know what I mean, it's like they feel that they can save this woman from the mental illness and nurture her and, you know, be the white knight. And you know what I mean? And I think that's probably why that, you know, even if a woman has mental illness, a guy would, you know, it's really a little more easier for a guy to, you know, look past that, or for another woman or a significant other or a partner to try and look past that. Whereas it's not so much with a guy, because speaking from personal experience, oh man, women that kind of are like, I want a guy who doesn't have bipolar. I want a guy who has his shit together. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean, to take care of me, and you know, kind of like that. And so, if a guy's with mental illness, that's kind of a huge turnoff for a woman right there. It's, you know what I mean? It's like a huge, huge turnoff that the guy has a mental illness and he may not have his shit together. Whereas for a woman, it's not a gigantic. It is a deal breaker, but not as much as I've seen it when a guy has a mental illness. It's like another one where it's like, man, that's really crappy. You know what I mean? It really is. In addition for that, like, it's, for a woman, it's like, it's seen as like it's okay to be suffering. For a guy, it's like, you know, if he has mental illness, like, you're better. You need to man up. You need to be strong. You need to, you know, go move past it and man up and be a man. With women, it's like, that's okay. It's okay. We're gonna, you know, it's, and yeah, those are like the differences that I've noticed when how a mental illness is treated. With a male, like with the male in general, it's not seen as, oh, it's not. It's kind of a lot more stigma on males based on society expectations and biological expectations that they're supposed to be strong, protective, and hunters. You know what I mean? And that's still prevalent to this day too. So, you know, it's not as acceptable. It's not really that as acceptable for a male to have a mental illness, whereas a woman has a mental illness. I mean, it's really not. It's seen as weakness in males. For, you know, just in general, like people who want to try to help a person out, people are more willing to help out a woman suffering from mental illness and a woman who's in distress than a male who's suffering from mental illness and distress. You know, it's just a fact. You know, I've firsthand experience. You know what I mean? You know, when a woman suffering from mental illness, more people want to help. More people are willing to go out and try to help. Where the male suffering from mental illness, they kind of just, you know, they try to either, and from personal experience, by the way, they like will avoid the male. Had that happen, that made me feel great. They avoid the guy, or like, you know, they kind of, you know, or they kind of like, pretty much that. They kind of avoid the guy. They kind of try to avoid the subjects and stuff like that, and it's just crappy. So, like, more people are wondering about women than a guy. Like, outreach programs, there are more for women than there are for guys. And the ones that typically are for guys are, you know, guys that are in high school or in college. And you'll get the the army or military service type stuff too, outreach. But for someone who is in the military service and never served or whatever, like 30 or 40, there's not a ton out there as compared to a women outreach and the outreach target demographics in general. That's a huge difference. There's more outreach for women than there are for males. And like I said, in terms of dating, like it's for some reason it's more acceptable for women and more okay for women to have that mental illness as seen from a potential partner perspective than it is for a male. For a woman, it's like she's struggling, and I just want to help her and save her, and that is going to be fine. For a guy, it's like, he doesn't have his shit together. He doesn't have his shit together. He might be violent, and you know what I mean. And that's some of the differences that I've seen, and some of them that I've experienced personally, how it's treated, mental illness is treated in male and female. And guess thanks for watching.